June 2003. In a field in Central Ireland, a worker makes a shocking discovery. The remains of a headless man, covered in slime, emerging from the mud. Foul play is suspected. Detective Aideen Campbell is dispatched to the scene of the crime.
When we got up to the crime scene tent, it was just on the far side of a drainage ditch that had been cut right up through the bog. Inside there was a specific area covered over with a black plastic lining. We removed that, and under that we were confronted with probably one of the most amazing sights I've ever seen in my life. What I saw were the partial remains of a human being. The head was missing. The body from the hips down, lower limbs were missing. The arms extended out in front of the body in a semicircular pattern.
Dr. Richard Shepard is a world-renowned forensic pathologist with more than 2 decades' experience investigating suspicious deaths.
There's no way this person has died from natural causes. This person has clearly met a very violent end. There's evidence of decapitation, there's evidence of dismembering of the body after death.
What dark deeds led to such a horrifying end? The body is taken to the lab, but the investigators don't have much to go on. There's no head, no legs, but the hands are intact, and they provide the first clues.
The hands were in a beautiful state of preservation. When the police fingerprints man had a look at them, he said, "These are the hands of a body that's only 4 days dead."
But the body is much older. When samples are taken for radiocarbon dating, investigators are able to determine when the mummy lived and died. The results astonish everyone. This headless man lived roughly 2,400 years ago, centuries before the birth of Christ. Ned Kelly is the keeper of antiquities at the Museum of Ireland. He has spent a decade trying to figure out the story behind this mummy. And for Ned, it's more than just an ancient cold case, because this was once a living man.
You're not just dealing with museum objects. This man is as real as anyone in this room. Maybe he was leaving behind people he loved, children, spouse, family and friends.
We may never know his real name, but archaeologists call him Croghan Man, because he was found here, under the shadow of a place called Croghan Hill, located in Central Ireland. It's a potential clue in figuring out who he was, because Croghan Hill was once the center of an ancient Irish kingdom.
When I came along to view the bog body down here in the bog, one immediately saw Croghan Hill, and one immediately knew the significance of this hill. This is the inauguration hill of the kings of this region.
During the Iron Age, Ireland was divided into hundreds of kingdoms, each ruled by a different king, crowned in sacred spaces or on hills like this one. What role did Croghan Man play in this ancient kingdom?
Within that kingdom, you would have found the chief or king. He would be in overall command of the village. He would make the decisions, and it would be him you'd go to if you needed help. You'd have lots of layers underneath. You'd have druid class or religious class. They had high standing within society. You'd have your warriors. The warrior class who would be expected to be trained warriors who would go out and fight for your king. They'd be there to protect the king and protect the noble classes. And then you'd have the vast majority of people, the bottom of the pyramid as it were, who were in charge of the manual labour. So most of the time in food procurement, the farming.
The people of Iron Age Ireland left no written record. So investigators turned to modern forensics and Dr. Shepard for clues.
So the first thing that's striking is just how big he is. His hands are huge, his spread of his arms is massive. And clearly this person would have been a very striking and obvious individual in any circumstance.
In the Iron Age, the average height of a man was just 5.5 feet.
Croghan man was much taller than the average person. He has broad shoulders, he has big hands, he's very muscular and well built. And so he would stand out from the average Joe. That sort of size, that sort of being that big, quite intimidating. So think a warrior maybe, someone who's going to stand out and scare the people he's going to go and fight. Or someone who's used to manual labor. He's built his muscles up by working hard, by chopping trees.
Our mummy may be built like a warrior or farmer, but the evidence is pointing in a different direction.
When we look closer at the hands of this individual, we can see that his fingernails are really very well trimmed, they're manicured, and they're clean. There's no way that this person has been working in the fields doing heavy manual work.
There were no scars or calluses on the hand. So this was a man who did not do manual labor. The other thing that was noted was that he had beautifully manicured fingernails. This indicates that this is a man of high social status.
So Croghan man probably wasn't a warrior or a farmer. But there's another clue that might tell us who he was.
On his left arm, you can see he had an armlet. And it's an armlet made of plated leather with copper alloy mounts on it as well. The wearing of armlets, we believe, are indicative of high status. And in the Irish tradition, armlets are all associated with solar worship.
Archaeologists believe these hilltop monuments are strong evidence of sun and sky worship during the Iron Age. And the metal clips on Croghan man's armlet could represent the sun and perhaps indicate he was a religious leader known as a druid.
They were very much a separate elite class. They kept themselves to themselves. It would take up to 20 years to learn to be a druid. So once you were chosen to become a druid, you'd be taken off at a young age and you would be taught the secrets. And then you would come back to society and be revered as this unknown person who has great power and links to the gods and to nature.
Tall, strong, high status, and possibly a religious leader. The next step for investigators is to piece together how he died. An investigation into the life and death of this 2,400-year-old mummy is underway. He's known as Croghan man. We know he was tall, high status, and possibly a religious leader. He was found in a place like this, a peat bog, an organic cocktail of water and decaying vegetation. It's why Croghan man became a mummy.
And
just walking on compressed moss.
Andrew Chamberlain's specialty is the study of ancient human remains. To understand more about bog bodies, he dares to enter the treacherous world of the peat bogs.
When an Iron Age body is placed into this sort of environment, what it's falling into is the decay products of this, the moss. And this acts as a natural preserving agent. Stops the normal decay processes which would lead to the disappearance of the soft tissues of the body.
When most people think mummy, they think of this, an Egyptian pharaoh, deliberately dried, wrapped, and preserved by experts. Bog bodies are different. They become mummies naturally.
Normally putting a body into water is a good way of speeding up decomposition. Putting a body into a bog is totally different. It's very highly acidic, and it leads to a process of tanning of the body, producing leather of the skin, and actually causes preservation rather than assisting in decomposition and destruction of the body.
The bog not only preserved the body, but also the first clue in piecing together the final moments of Croghan man's life. If investigators could figure out how he met his end, they might just discover who he was in life.
There are holes in his arms, in his upper arms, into which withies have been inserted. A withy is a rope made from twisted branches.
Incredibly, the bog has preserved fragments of this ancient withy rope.
So when we look at the arms, we can see there are injuries. They're deep cuts, and this is caused by a shaft of wood being thrust through the arm. It's called a withy, and it's a way of restraining an individual. One through each upper arm and tied together, and the hands are fixed. It would be impossible to move with your hands fixed in that position. Now, this is an injury that would have been very painful. It would have bled a bit, but it's not lethal. And it was probably done to keep him under control.
The mummy is yielding its secrets. Croghan man was bound before death, and not just with simple ropes, but hobbled like an animal, with a wooden cord pierced through his arms. Dr. Shepard has performed hundreds of autopsies and recognizes a murder victim when he sees one. He's beginning to see how the killing might have happened, step by step.
We can see there's a deep stab wound to the chest, which has penetrated into the chest cavity and would have caused severe internal injuries.
This small sword here is of the type that would have been used to kill. It would have had a bone haft, a bone quillion, as they call this cross piece, and a blade which would have been perhaps about that length.
It's possible the stab wound killed Croghan man, but investigators believe the violence didn't end there.
When we look at the neck wounds, it's obvious beheading has taken place. The key thing is, how has that been achieved? The pattern of the injury to the skin that is left during the act of beheading gives us a lot of information about what must have gone on.
We know our victim was very tall, so the question is, how did someone cut off his head?
And looking at the pattern of the skin injury, we can see that it scoops down to the front and is relatively high at the back.
High cut marks at the back of the neck and low at the front suggest the victim was bent forward or on his knees.
So he must have been bent forward with his neck stretched out as the blow was struck from behind. That's the only way this pattern of injuries can be caused.
This was no random act of violence. Croghan man was the victim of premeditated murder. Not content with killing him, the perpetrators then mutilated the body.
The other thing we can see is that the body has been dismembered by a cut through the abdomen after death, possibly following disembowelment.
Bound, stabbed, beheaded, dismembered. It's enough information for Dr. Shepard to reach a chilling hypothesis.
With the arms behind the back and the neck stretched out, it shows there must have been at least two people present, one to wield the axe and the other to hold the hands. This looks to me not like a random event on a battlefield. This looks like an organised, possibly ritual execution.
There's one final injury. Something so specific, so bizarre, it could be the key to unlocking the mystery, not only of his death, but of his life as well.
There's one additional injury which is really unusual. The left nipple has been sliced through. Now, this isn't an injury designed to cause death, but designed to be a marker.
A killing with a bizarre signature. The next step for investigators will be to visit the place where the body was found. "2,400 years ago, this mummy was a living person. But his life ended here, in an Irish bog. By analyzing wounds on the body, investigators have pieced together a disturbing picture of this killing. An act of extreme violence, with a ritual signature. A slice below the left nipple. But questions remain. Who was the victim, now known as Croghan man? And who were his killers? In the search for answers, Ned Kelly is looking for clues at the scene of the crime, the bog.
In ancient Ireland, most of the landscape were covered in trees. So one of the few places you could go for this kind of a vista on the sky was on a bog. And the people of that period were sun worshippers. So if they wanted to come and contemplate the heavens, they could go onto a bog.
The people of Iron Age Ireland saw nature as something where the spirit world and the real world were combined. These rituals would have been carried out by this druid class, this class of ritual or religious leaders who could speak and understood how to talk to and interpret the messages from the gods. Everything in nature, every animal, every plant had a spirit. And as well as those spirits, there were the gods who controlled these things.
Croghan man's body was found in the middle of an ancient bog. So how did he get there? This incredible structure may provide the answer. It's known as a trackway, part of a lost ancient network of wetland roads that once crisscrossed bogs all over Ireland.
Some of them are fantastic feats of engineering which stretch for kilometers. They're made up of oak planks laid on top of birch runners, which are then laid on top of this brushwood to stop them from sinking. It can be up to 4 meters wide, and they think that it's big enough to take wheeled carts on. So that's the sort of size structure we're looking at.
But while some trackways were for transportation, others appear to have had a more mysterious purpose.
Some of them just go out into the bog and lead to nowhere. They stop in the middle of nowhere in the bog. Now, this could be thought of as something that was accidental, but around these areas we find these deposits, we find artifacts of importance. And so these are thought to possibly be lines out into a ritual area.
These sacred effigies were found at the end of a trackway. And that's not all. Other objects have been found here as well.
This is a wooden vessel of Iron Age date filled to the top with butter. It has been placed in a bog as an offering to the goddess. It's seeking big returns from the deities in terms of good crops, protection of the cattle, bountiful supplies of milk and butter. This is a very valuable offering, which an entire community has contributed to.
For Ned Kelly, the discovery of this mummy in a bog, the same environment where religious offerings were made, is a vital clue.
People believed that these places were inhabited by spirits, by gods. When the sun sinks at night, it goes down into the other world, where the dead are. And then it rises the next day. And the redness of the bog indicates that this is a portal into that other world. So this is a place where you can go to make contact with the ancestors and with the deities that inhabit the other world.
So why was Croghan man's body dumped in a sacred bog? Ned Kelly thinks the answer can be found in the engravings on the Gundestrup cauldron. Though it was discovered in Denmark, this sacred object is connected to a very similar culture. It dates from the Iron Age, and it too was discovered at the bottom of a peat bog. There are no written inscriptions on its surface, but hammered onto its silver and gold are images of pagan rites, including blood sacrifice.
The Gundestrup cauldron is a very remarkable object. On the base of the cauldron, there is the primary image is the killing of a bull. There's a bull being killed.
And animal sacrifice isn't the only thing depicted.
There is an image with an individual who is being held upside down over a cauldron. And he's either being drowned in the cauldron or he's had his throat cut and maybe he's been bled into a cauldron. But certainly that particular image is widely regarded as an image of human sacrifice.
Ned believes Croghan man was a pagan human sacrifice.
He is somebody who has fallen from a very privileged position to now know that he's going to be literally dumped into a bog hole and left there for eternity. It's a depressing way to end one's life.
But why was this man chosen for sacrifice? An investigation into the life and death of this mummy has taken a shocking twist. Evidence of ritual human sacrifice.
When you look at all of the elements, both the physical damage inflicted on the body, the location where the body has been placed, this really all leads up to a conclusion that what's been done to this man is for very specific ritual reasons.
But what was the motive? Croghan man was young, strong, and of high social status. Why sacrifice such a valuable member of the community? Microscopic evidence collected from the bog could provide the answer.
What we're seeing here is the end result of thousands of years of growth of the moss, producing this black material, which is peat. Here is about a centimetre of peat for every 12 years of growth of moss.
Trapped inside the peat is ancient plant pollen. Scientists can use it to figure out what the weather was like long ago.
So we can track back in time going down the section. If we go down a metre, we might be about 1,200 years ago, and a bit less than another metre down would take us back to the Iron Age.
What scientists now know is that when Croghan man was alive, 2,400 years ago, the climate was cold and wet.
So this climate change is triggering a failure of crops, and farmland is shrinking. We see less pollen from crops in the bogs. If you're losing farmland, you're losing food. So people are going to start getting hungry, and it's going to start getting really tough for those people who are living through this period. It's a dark age in the fact that crops are failing, things are getting harder, and starvation is going to set in very soon. And this is all seen within the pollen analysis that we get from these bogs.
With the kingdom in crisis, something needed to be done.
So the general populace would believe this was something that the gods were creating. They were angry, they were displeased, they'd done something wrong to upset them. So they would turn to the people they knew could speak to the gods, the druids, to come up with the solution to the problem. Now this would have started off most likely to have been small votive offerings of possibly even food. But if this didn't work, then they'd have to go up, and they'd have to up the ante, as it were.
What more valuable offering, perhaps, can there be than actually a human sacrifice at a time when the deity has turned her face away from the people?
For Ned, the evidence is piling up. An ancient kingdom, torn apart by environmental crisis, turned to human sacrifice. But a big question remains. Who was Croghan man? The clues on his mummy alone don't provide the answer. So investigators turn to something else. Another mangled corpse, also found in a bog.
These are his shoulder blades and his back. And you can see the way his neck is twisted with the face lying sideways.
This is Clonycavan man. Like Croghan man, he is amazingly preserved. When Ned compared the two men, he found some shocking similarities. The first, they lived at approximately the same time.
The dating evidence for both Clonycavan man and old Croghan man is between 400 and 200 BC. So these men may have lived at the same time.
Next, their bodies were found very close together.
They would have lived quite a short distance from each other, maybe 30 kilometers. So it's not at all beyond the bounds of possibility that these men would have known each other.
And both bodies show signs of high status.
The front of the head here is shaved. The back of the hair, though, was left long, and it has been gathered up onto the top of the head, a bit like a Mohican style.
When analyzed, scientists found traces of oil and tree resin from southern Europe. It appears it was used as an ancient hair gel.
That tells us that this man was able to acquire exotic foreign imports. So this man was an important member of society.
And the pattern doesn't stop there. The forensic evidence suggests both men were killed using extreme violence.
There are a number of injuries, at least 3 severe injuries to the head. There are axe blows to the face, one striking him here, one more in the center, one over the top of his head, and one at the back of the head. Any one of these blows would have killed him.
2 men, both high status, both violently murdered during a time of crisis. But most chilling of all, the 2 men share the same signature wound, a sliced left nipple.
There is one injury that does link the 2 of them, and that's an incised injury to the left nipple. If I was looking at these 2 cases today, I would say that that was a signature injury, a mark that is so unique and unusual that it indicates that they were caused by the same person or the same group of people.
For historian Ned Kelly, this brutal signature is the key to unlocking the mystery of who these men were.
When the body was first found, it was speculated that this was a form of torture inflicted on him, but we don't believe that. We think that this again has a ritual significance.
For Ned, the final piece of the puzzle, the key to uncovering the identity of the bog bodies, revealed itself in the 5th century writings of St. Patrick. The famous Irish missionary recorded folklore and oral history passed down through the ages.
St. Patrick tells us that the sucking of a king's nipples is a gesture of submission in ancient Ireland. So the cutting of this man's nipples would have had very particular significance. It would have rendered him incapable of kingship.
The signature injury to the nipples of these 2 men suggests to Ned they were once kings. And the slicing was not random violence, but an act of ritual dethronement.
So the cutting of this man's nipples would have had very particular significance because the king had a physical blemish. He could not be king.
The discovery takes Ned back to the place where the investigation began, the sacred hilltop that was once the center of an ancient Irish kingdom. If Ned is right, this is where Croghan man was inaugurated king in the first place. And that inauguration may have led to his death. Historian Ned Kelly believes this mummy was once an ancient Irish king. Understanding what it meant to be a king in ancient Ireland can help explain why Croghan man suffered such a violent death. Kingship ceremonies happened on sacred hilltops like this one. The inauguration route is still carved into the landscape.
With his entourage of whatever they were, we call them druids, religious people, people who are keeping an eye on him. He's being walked up towards the main monuments on the hill on this great processional routeway.
Kingship was not a birthright. Kings were chosen based on health and physical prowess. because kings were not just kings. They had a very special extra duty. They were considered married to the earth goddess, bearing responsibility for the health and well-being of the land and the tribe.
Old Croghan man was married to the earth goddess, and it was conceived of as, you know, a real marriage. He's personally responsible. The weather, the health of the people, the numbers of babies produced in the society, everything to do with fertility, the well-being of the cattle and so on, the crops, he is personally responsible for, because it is up to him to ensure the benevolence of the deity, to ensure that the sun god and the earth goddess favour the people. That's his role.
Ancient kingship hills are scattered across Ireland.
But there are different types of kings in Ireland at the time of Croghan or Clonycavan man. You'd have about 150 kings, local kings, who'd have a small territory.
But the king's grip on power was precarious.
It's a very different world to our Western mind. In a sense, the king had a contract with his people, so he was there to mind the people. And he was to negotiate with nature. People are so dependent on the rain, the sun, and can't control it. But they had to have somebody who could be seen to control the wind or the rain, and that fell on the shoulders of the king. He was regarded as above his people, but yet they could pull him down.
Unable to control the weather, failing in his duty as king, and watching his people suffer, this ancient Irish king would pay the ultimate price.
When the people perceive that he's not fulfilling that role, then it's time to select a new king. So what do you do with the old king? You take him out and you sacrifice him. You take him out into a boundary bog here on the boundary of the territory surrounding this inauguration hill.
Crowned in the hills, killed in the bogs. What were the final hours like for these men? Modern forensics has found another clue: the Last Supper of a king.
Analysis of the fingernails showed that he generally had a meat-rich diet, but analysis of the digestive system showed that his last meal was something completely different.
The stomach contained a final meal consisting of cereals and buttermilk. And we know that the provision of corn and milk for the people is a central role of a king. So this is a highly significant meal to have been given as a final meal. So this was a ritual meal.
Traces of food can still be found in Croghan man's digestive tract, which means his Last Supper was just hours before his death, perhaps even in the presence of his killers.
I would suspect that his final moments were witnessed and probably performed by the Druids. They would have acted on behalf of the people.
Druid priests, once kingmakers, now executioners.
Old Croghan man and Clonycavan man would have had a pretty good idea, I think, what was going to befall them when they got out on the bog.
Bound by the ropes cut into his arms, his final walk to the place of execution would have been agonizing.
Old Croghan man was a young man. He would have almost certainly have had children. He would have had a clear view of the hill and of the inauguration mound on which he was made king. So one would wonder what sort of reflections would have passed through his mind at that last moment. It must have been a very frightening experience. They knew that they were going to face a very violent death. The body was found right in the middle of that bog. And there he was put to death. And he was beheaded.
After 24 centuries, the secrets of this mummy's death have come to light. He was a man brutally killed by others, not a fallen soldier in battle, or the victim of random violence. This man died for his people.
This man was a former king who failed in his kingship, and that his death is the natural consequence of that. He's being killed so that he can be replaced by a new, young, vigorous, successful king who will be married to the same cruel goddess as this man was. So, such was life in ancient Ireland.